Hello, my friend. I am so happy for you to join us on this journey with the Enneagram and Marriage podcast today as we open up to holiday season or whenever you're listening live. We are so thankful and excited to get to talk with Dr. Tracy Dalgleish today. She is an Enneagram 3 and a 3-9 pairing. And most importantly, this time as she revisits our pod, she's coming on to talk about a paramount issue in marriage that has been talked about for centuries, millennia, and today we finally have an amazing research-based tool of hers to talk about it with you. And this is the issue of you, your husband, and his mother. If you're the husband listening, stay right here. This is an episode for both spouses to shed awareness on immediate tools that are practical that you can already use for success, as well as we're promoting her book. And I am so thrilled and excited. I've already seen the conversations that are fire online about it because this is a topic, like I said, that's been talked about for the ages, will be talked about for the ages, but we want more than that here. We don't want gossip. We want to get things done so you and your family can have peace around the holidays and always. So if this episode is not for you, do us a favor and share it with somebody you love who does need this episode. Guaranteed there's somebody like that who could use it. Dr. Tracy shares gold with us today, and she answers a lot of my tough questions, but she also speaks to the heart, you and your family having a healthy unit and your in-laws having healthiness. Guys, seasons and life stages have changed across generations. Women are no longer just the kin keepers, and now new generations have to figure out new ways of doing things. Doesn't mean the old was bad or wrong. It just means we're all shifting together, and we have great tips and tools for you. So I couldn't be more thrilled that she is here to talk about her brand new book, launching out tomorrow. We are getting her before that. Make sure you grab it in the show notes. You, your husband, and his mother, creating a healthy relationship with your mother-in-law and your spouse in 5 simple steps. So great to hear. It's already a bestseller in pre-orders. That's why I'm like, guys, predictions are wild. This is going to be one of those books that is talked about forever, needed forever. So go ahead and grab that for your holiday family who needs it so much. Or if it's you, I'm so glad you're here. Now, before we dive in the conversation, I have just a couple of fun housekeeping items to keep things running smoothly and joyfully here. First, the moment you've been waiting for on the Cozy Mysteries contest. So thankful for Hadley Hartwell, Sarah, her pen name, giving us this wonderful gift of her books. And I'm so thankful. She also had 9 winners, but our grand prize winner, Season Geisler, won not only the book, but also an Enneagram pairing guide and also a mystery dinner game. And we're so happy. Congrats to Season. She is a type 8. All of the rest of you, I'll just briefly list off. You guys have already been tagged on Instagram. Most of you have given addresses, but Alex Taylor, Casey J, Tay, Kathleen Essen, Ashley Lele 1, Kim Retz, the Rosie fam, Mara Eller, Michelle Barkman, M. Nur, and of course, you already heard me say Season. So congrats. I'm so excited for you. Thank you for sharing addresses. Thank you to the rest of you who played. Your engagement and insights made this contest so much fun. And it also gave Hadley a chance to see what you guys want more in the terms of mystery writing for who you guys are. So she was also researching you. Lastly, before Dr. Tracy comes on, don't forget our community survey is still up. My collective and some of you also have done a beautiful job of sharing what you'd like to see more of, but you are the community and you make this podcast better. So if you can share what we want to hear, what do you want to hear in particular, you and your spouse, just you, I would love that as we get planning for our next season. And one more thing, I want to let you know I have a series of amazing guests and powerful authors lined up for the next few weeks because I'm going into a mad season of writing before the holidays. So I'm so grateful Melody has reached high and asked some incredible people to join us, starting right here with Dr. Tracy. And I'm so grateful for these conversations coming your way. We are going to set you up for healthy, happy holidays. So now back to today's conversation. Make sure you listen. Husbands, again, listen so you can get that peace at home. Wives, remember, women find themselves in these toxic patterns, especially women, research shows, with their in-laws, and can feel like walking on eggshells, and that can affect everybody, everything, and even the kids. So let's begin and get to talk to Dr. Tracy right now. Dr. Tracy, we are so thrilled to have you back on the Enneagram and Marriage Pod. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, Christa, I'm just grateful that we have this connection and that I get to be here with your community again. So thank you for having me back.
Of course, you are talking to us just before we hit such big times. You have a beautiful new resource for us. We cannot wait to dig in. So many people hit play today in anticipation of our topic that's so needed. But first, can you just tell everybody about yourself, where you come from, and even a bit about your Enneagram and marriage pairing for those who don't remember the first episode?
Yes. Oh, and it's so interesting. I've actually revisited my Enneagram, and it's It's different.
Oh, I
Very
love.
different. And isn't that interesting from pre-book one to then here I am
Mhm.
today. So this is really cool. So
Amazing.
for those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Tracy and I'm a psychologist and couples therapist in Ottawa. I always say that's my professional hat and you'll see me front facing doing that as well as offering online resources for couples all over the world. And the things you don't necessarily see are my husband is the rock behind this business.
Mm.
He does all of the behind the scenes stuff that I do not get to do what I do today without him as part of my team.
It's amazing.
And I am a mother and I have an amazing 8 and 10-year old. And I can honestly say, oh, I did not think I would ever get through my PhD. And I thought that would be the hardest thing that I would do in my life, sitting in a room, writing about the same thing over and over again every single day for 6 years. And motherhood rocked me. And I love showing up human with people to say, hey, I get it. I really get it. So it's been such a gift to take my teachings and my own
Mhm.
experiences, combine them together with research, with
Mm.
evidence, with my clinical work, and
Wow.
then to get to be here and sit across from people like you who are
Mm.
also doing this work and really supporting women and couples out in the world. Okay, Enneagram piece. I'm a 3.
Oh, I love that. And that you have this huge following that totally makes sense. You shine so brightly in the world.
The one that I looked at before, and thank you for that, Krista. The
Mhm.
one before, I really wrestled with it, and I was like, am I wrestling it with it because I am a true one? That I'm like, this is
Yeah.
not the right one,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I can't remember what quiz I took, but then when I did it again recently, it was a full 3, true
Mm.
and true, with a little bit of the 2 as the helper, of course.
Yeah.
But that was. Oh yes, that completely made sense. And then my husband's is a 9 and
Mhm.
he is a true peacekeeper.
Mm.
And we have our own strengths and weaknesses in our business because of that. Because sometimes I'm so busy wanting to help and care for others that I want him to just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And then because he's the peacekeeper, telling me what to do feels like we could be entering into conflict. And he
Right.
doesn't like that. And so,
Right.
I think this is where the Enneagram really does come in, is it's allowing us to see what are the strengths that we have. And
Mm.
then how does that build our business and our family and marriage? And then also, what are the weaknesses or not so strong places that we need to work on?
Yeah, and it's incredibly brave work to do. So I give you a lot of credit, and I give every listener out there doing the work with us credit because it is so easy to walk away from a system that gets you and not just your strengths, but also your areas for growth. And to say, I'm not looking at that. This is a hero villain thing. I'm perfect. My spouse is the one. And instead, you're like, our whole family is gifted when we do our work, both our strengths and our shadows. And you do have such beautiful strengths together. Your husband is such a huge dynamic part of why you're successful. And I love that. So just hearing that for everyone here, this is how far they could rise up. And you're still growing too, you just said. So you're like, I have arrived in many ways, but in many ways, I'm still growing and I'm sharing what I'm learning. So thank you so much for that and for being here. I love your 3-9 pairing.
Thank you, Krista.
Oh, yes. Well, we're thrilled, and the whole world is, quite honestly, guys. Dr. Tracy's platform is only growing by the second. Seriously, already huge and growing because you are talking about such a pertinent topic. Tell us about your new book and why you felt like now was the right time to write it. I know it's a forever timely topic.
Yeah, this book really is one that you could pick up at any time of the year, and particularly right before the holidays. So
Yes.
my new book is called You, Your Husband, and His Mother.
Mhm.
And what motivated me to write this book is with nearly 20 years of working with couples between researching with my PhD and then also clinically, the same pattern shows up in therapy. Couples come in wanting to be on the same page, wanting to solve their problems. All couples say, we want to work on communication and connection. And there's this common desire for all of them, which is we want to have healthy relationships with extended family members. And
Mhm.
yet, there are so many patterns and dynamics at play that it can really be tricky to get on the same page and to have that strong union and bond as a
Mhm.
couple because we are pulled to the relationships with other people in our life, especially our mothers.
Yeah.
And I've walked beside people who have worked through my 5 steps. So in the book, I
Mm.
have my vault method. It's 5 steps for couples to move through. If your
Mhm.
partner's not on board, you can still do the work. It's still there for you.
Mm.
And it's really about getting aligned with what's important to you,
Mm.
learning to set boundaries, identifying those patterns, and then actually putting this into action. And
Mm.
Krista, it's been incredible to see the response to these strategies, but not
Mm.
just that, more so to, I mean, yes, we all want to improve our relationships, but I think the key piece here is this cultural moment in this conversation that we're
Mhm.
having.
Mm.
And that is that women are showing up today saying, I no longer want to do the same thing as what women did before us. I don't
Mhm.
want to be the kin keeper of the family because the mental load is so heavy. And I'm caring for my family that I can't possibly care for yours at the same time. Or I want the mental load to look differently. Or we're raising our children in such a different way today. And so for so many women, this stirs up a tension or a conflict or maybe even an insecurity with an
Mhm.
extended family member, with their mother-in-law, because then she says, do I still have a role here? If you're
Mm.
doing it differently, does that mean I did it wrong? Do I
Yeah.
still matter to you as a family?
Yeah.
And sometimes those tensions aren't even above surface. They're very much unconscious that we're not even aware of them.
Mm. I really like that you named that a lot of the time. As intuitive feelers, most women can pick up on things that aren't there. And I notice for a lot of men, it's socialized, as we were talking before we got on, to compartmentalize more. And so they may not even pick up on some of these exhausting cues. And I was going to ask if that is one of the most common issues you see is a wife saying, I'm picking up on this from your mom, that maybe there's a competition. Or what would you say are the biggest themes you see running through these issues? Because I know they're so real.
Well, we can even start by saying that as an outsider to the family,
Yeah.
you are going to notice the patterns. You are
Mm.
going to be able to name it because you didn't grow up in it. And not because
Yeah.
you want to say, whoa, your family is awful and look at all these things that you have to
Yeah.
change about them.
Yeah.
No, not at all. But as a way of saying, now that we know this about your family, how do we want to create our chosen family? So the
Mhm.
first pattern is often that daughters-in-law get labeled as the scapegoat or the bad one because they're
Yes.
naming this pattern and they're going to
Mhm.
their husband saying, your mom can't keep guilt tripping us. Or
Yeah.
as I worked through with a client recently, your mom can't keep showing up and filling our pantry and fridge. And like, we need to take the key back.
Yeah.
And then what happens then is because their husband may not even be aware of the problem, may not
Mhm.
even be attuned to it, and will say things that are part of the legacy patterns. So in
Mhm.
the second chapter, I walk through what those patterns are. But even off the top of my head, one of the common ones we see is around denial and control.
Mm.
Denial is to say, that's not real, that didn't happen, that's not what I did. Your feelings don't matter. And
Mm.
then what ends up happening here is it's this attempt to keep a family system in place
Yeah.
when we're actually what's healthy to do is to separate. And so I say this to
Mhm.
all the couples I work with, also to the men who come into my therapy room. I say this loud and clear in the book. This work is not about abandoning your family. We don't want
Mm.
to abandon them. It's
Yeah.
now about turning to your partner and choosing them and
Yeah.
prioritizing the needs and the health and the emotions of what's happening in your house. Not so
Mhm.
then we can change our mind because mom's upset. Not because we're going to say, no, it didn't happen that way. We're going to say, yeah, that does feel hard when mom shows up and criticizes you. And that doesn't feel
Mm.
good. Like, how now can we plan to address this?
Mm. I love that reminder that that work is possible. And that is the biggest pattern. And you were able to give us some overarching, these are some of the biggest pieces you see. And I can resonate after doing this work for 2 decades as well, that these are the big patterns, is in some way, mom-in-law remembers a system or longs for a system that they never had or that they once had, and then tries to bring it in. And as you said, daughter-in-law sees it and says there's going to be some differences generally, just generationally or otherwise. And then you said denial and control. And why do you think a man would try to control that? Just to say, like, let's keep it simple, let's keep it compartmentalized. Obviously, I'm not trying to villainize.
Nope, not at all. And also, too, we know it's not all men. We know that there are
Right.
some women who struggle more with their mothers and men have
Yes,
conflict.
this is
I,
true.
I do want to emphasize, though, that what I see clinically
Hmm.
and from the research
Hmm.
is there is higher conflict between daughter-in-law and mother-in-law.
Mm,
So, to
okay.
answer that question, Krista, part
Yeah.
of that reason in there is that many men, not all, use avoidance as coping strategies. They
Mm,
use compartmentalizing. They don't want to enter into conflict. One of my most downloaded episodes I actually did with my husband on my podcast is conflict avoidance because
mhm,
there's so much, it feels like there's so much at stake when there's conflict. And so
mhm,
you can imagine, and the book cover has these triangles on it, and the title itself is The Triangle. But you can
mhm.
imagine then as a person, just imagine an individual for a moment, and you look left and you want to, that person has been in your life your whole life and you want to make them happy because, that's what we
Mhm.
crave and desire.
Yeah,
Kids, when we keep our parents happy, that's connection. It's not the healthy thing that we want to do, but it's
yeah,
often tied to how have I kept connection with you my whole life?
yeah.
And then you look right, and there's this person that you feel so excited to come to every single day. You open the
Mhm.
door and you can't wait to hug them. You can't wait to share that hard meeting you had or to have intimacy and sex together and just be so close. And you want to keep them happy.
Mm,
And it's like this bind. And the hard truth that I sit with so many men is it's not your job to keep your mom happy.
mm,
It is your job now to protect your wife.
mm. Yeah,
And you can do that with compassion and respect and love. We're not cutting out mom.
right. That's really key because I think that's the fear is that they would be. And I think sometimes people, when they're super worrisome, will say that's what I do want is for you to entirely cut out. And I'm sure we've both seen that with couples, and occasionally it's needed, but that is very comforting when people are listening. Maybe there's some husbands listening right now that can hear you say, doing the work does not involve cutting the person out usually. It just involves a boundary. I also like in your book how you talk about how we're not directing our anger at the person in the triangle, but just at the messiness of the triangle itself. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, but let's put the anger on the dynamic. And
Mhm.
it's not because here's the thing, the anger towards that person, we don't have to like it. We don't have to approve of what they're doing. We can't control them. And
Mhm.
oftentimes when we can't control somebody or let me rephrase that. Maybe it's not so much controlling, but when we don't have that sense of certainty or no, I do want to use the word control to control the outcome. That's what I'm looking for. Not necessarily that you want to control somebody, but you
Yeah.
want to control the outcome. When you
Mhm.
can't do that in life, it stirs up emotions inside of you. And one of the most common ones is anger. And
Mhm.
likely because you do feel wronged, you feel judged, you feel hurt. It's, as one client described it to me, it's death by a thousand paper cuts. The criticisms and jabs every time mother in law comes over. And you
Mhm.
keep doing it because it's connected to what's important to you. You want
Mhm.
grandma to be with kids. And
Yeah.
yet at the same time, it just hurts so deeply. And so I do think there's this process in here for women who also
Mhm.
then have to do grief work,
Yeah.
which includes processing your anger in a
Mm.
way that's healthy, not going to your husband and venting all of that out to him because
Mm.
that's not going to help both of you together. And then
Mm.
also, too, how do you then access the loss and the sadness to help you move to acceptance of what the relationship is?
Mm. Yeah. Oh, that's powerful that all the anger doesn't have to go toward him. It can go at the system. It doesn't all have to go towards her.
Hmm.
And I love how you're empowering women. And I think I've learned this in my own therapy too, is we can't control another person, the mother-in-law in our situation, whoever that is, or sister-in-law or whatever, but we can't control the spouse, but
Hmm.
we can have healthy self-control. And that's another thing I love about your book is you go through scripts of what to do if this happens. And you're empowering us because you know all of us are going to have unique scenarios, but you do not miss a beat on all the things that could go wrong within this frame of just, hey, I don't want to use the triangle. I'm not going to do it. Maybe I knew about this work and I still didn't do it because sometimes people are imperfect. And so I love how you continue to empower us as the reader, as the person listening to you right now on the other end of the pod, that we can still set our boundary and do our work, even if the work is not perfectly done on the other side. Is that what you would say?
It's one of the most empowering things we can do for ourselves. And I connect this also to our core needs. Core needs are things like connection, love, and belonging. One
Mm-hmm.
of those needs is control,
Yeah.
power, freedom,
Yeah.
agency, and autonomy.
Yeah.
And not power and control in kind of more that icky way, but more in the way of saying, I have my 2 feet planted on the ground. I
Yeah.
don't get to choose what they do. What am I going to do? I think you and I both similarly use an analogy like a gate of what we allow into ourselves and how
Mhm.
open and closed that gate is. And when someone is in your space who does have this criticism or does guilt trip or say things to the kids that don't feel good, you put the gate up and you say, well, how am I going to protect me? How am I going to trust that I'm okay in this?
Mm.
And one of the most harmful patterns I see with couples is where one person criticizes mom and then it backs the other person into defensiveness and denial. And so if you go to your husband and you say, your mom is always, why can't she ever? She never, she, whatever it is. She's such a
Mhm.
martyr.
Yeah.
She's a gaslighter. Like just, oh, those terms.
Yeah.
Then what naturally you do is you push him into a corner and he's going to
Mhm.
get defensive and he's going
Mhm.
to deny your real experience. And it
Yes.
is that, and that's the other piece in the book that I highlight is again, what's your negative cycle? How do you step out of that and
Mhm.
communicate in a way that's actually much more effective for you to get on the same team?
Mm. That is so empowering. And I hope everyone heard her. She didn't just say, set boundaries. You said, so that you can be on the same team. And it just doesn't involve parroting. This is what I want you to say and do to your mother. And I want you to agree with me 100%.
Mm.
But you do go through beautiful tips for the husband too, where they're golden in terms of what he can do to use the vault method. Because I think we're empowering obviously women and husbands today who are struggling with the mother-in-law, but when it's your mother, it does feel like, whoa, this is my attachment parent. And so how can I choose between these two people in my life? And I hear you saying first loud and clear, you're going to have to choose to protect your spouse if you want a healthy marriage. But you're also saying there's ways you can protect that don't alienate. And I don't want to give the whole book away, but I do want to ask if you could name one or two of those ways that a husband can use the method too, to just make sure he at least remembers there's some benefits to you if you do set these boundaries with your mom.
Hmm. I think of two things. So first, I say this to all of the men is that when you do nothing, you are creating the problem. And so acknowledging that something isn't working here, acknowledging that you're not in the middle or your wife's not putting herself in the middle, it's a triangle. Acknowledging this is a very powerful first step and committing to doing something with your partner. And that first step might even be just validating her. And I say just as if it's easy. I know validation is
Yeah.
one of the hardest things for
Yeah.
couples to do
Yeah.
because she's there saying, how could your mom say that? And
Yeah.
here I am saying, validate, just validate, right? And validation is I see your feelings are real. I see that
Mm.
didn't feel good for you. I see
Yeah.
the pain that you must have. And that's all you have to say. It's so powerful when we can
So
tap into
true.
that small skill with great impact. So
Mm.
then the other piece, though, is how we show up with your parents. So for men listening today, and I hope if the women are listening, then you can play this with your partner and send it to them and they're going to jump on,
Yes.
is that the language you use with your parents is so important.
Mm.
And I worked through this recently with a couple where he would go to mom and dad, and mom would say, well, why is Krista still breastfeeding? When is she going to be
Right.
done? So I get to be part
Right.
of the feeding journey with baby.
Right.
And so he, with good intention, said, Krista's still breastfeeding. That's what she's choosing to do, whether it's
Right.
breastfeeding or sleep
Right.
choices or daycare choices, whatever it is.
Right.
It's such a small shift. It's
Yeah.
not, and it's not like he threw you under the bus. I'm not saying this
Right.
is what your husband did, but
Oh,
it's not like
right.
he
Yeah.
threw you under the bus, but he made it about you. It's such a
Mm.
small shift, but when you go to your parents, you present yourself as a united front. This is we.
Mm-hmm.
Mom, I know how much you love being with grandbaby, and we can't wait for you to be involved in
Yeah.
XYZ. We are making the best choice that works for us right now. We will let you know when we're done, or when we're ready, or when we are traveling, or when we're ready
Mm.
for you to babysit. And it's one of the most harmful things we can do is go to your family and say, "Well, Krista doesn't want to come for Sunday night dinner, so I guess we're not coming." Or
Right.
Krista's choosing to be with her family this Christmas, so we won't be able to be with you guys this Christmas. That is an immediate split. And
Mm-hmm.
instead, it's really about focusing on and honoring your union as the we.
Mm, I hope young couples are listening to this today too, because this is something we had to learn. And it took a long time because we did it the opposite way first. And then when we started to use the new language, the beautiful gift to other people in the family system is that when you shift, they have to shift. And if they don't, they're going to fall on their faces, and no one wants that. And usually people are tenacious and they will shift in a healthy way if you model that. And then all of a sudden they'll start to get healthier. That actually has happened without detail to our own in-law situation. When we set the boundaries, learn to use the we language, it was like they don't have anywhere else to go. There's no codependent bond anymore. So then they get healthier together and do their work. And that is the most beautiful thing that's on the back end of doing your own boundaries work, don't you think?
I love that you added this. I'm pretty sure that that is a phrasing I use at one of the end of my chapters in the book is that when you change, it forces someone else to show up and say, am I going to
Mhm.
change with you? Or am I going to
Mhm.
stay stuck in myself, which comes with its own consequences? And that is someone else's choice. You don't get to control that.
Right. But people
Mm.
that are knocked down and their pride is hurt, they
Mm.
don't want to stay there, is what I found. And they're like,
No.
well, dang it, I'm going to do my growing too, just to spite you. And you're like, I actually love that. I wanted you to grow. I'm a
Yeah.
therapist.
Yeah.
But like,
Well,
but I
and
also
there's this,
wanted to grow. I also wanted to have boundaries
of
and safety.
course.
And I think that's what I want also to add for husbands that you got me thinking about as I was reading and just following you is that I think that husbands are thinking, I'm going to have a much harder life if I have my mom mad at me and also my wife. But what will happen is your wife will start to feel safer with you. And as you just heard us say, your mother will actually have healthy boundaries with you. And it's a win 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 because now you have a healthy mom. You're
Mm.
getting your needs met from your wife. She feels safer. And you also mentioned in your book, desire grows from that safe space for women. And I just love that you talk about like your wife will be happier with you. And this affects every area of life, right?
Oh, let's just add to that. It's this
Yeah.
resilience building when you
Mm.
feel safe and secure with your partner. And this, Krista, I think this is why our work is so important. And it's a really tricky piece because I've had countless people send me messages and say, I can't follow you because what if my mom sees I'm following a couples therapist? Or
Yeah.
what if my neighbor knows? And I even saw a screenshot once of one of my reels on Reddit calling out some TV personality saying, uh-oh, what's happening in their marriage? They like this reel. And it's
Oh
just
my gosh.
the
Oh,
shame around wanting to improve your relationship, the shame
right.
about saying, and what is really what I did in my first book, you know, that is that I'm
Mhm.
calling out, you know what? I was at the park with my 1 year old and we're all talking about feeding choices and sleeping through the night. And I'm seething inside wondering, does anyone else hate their husband?
Yeah.
Is it just me and what's wrong with me?
Right.
But instead, when we say, and this book isn't for people who are struggling in wanting to cut people off. This is also about protecting your relationship. Because when you are secure, when you are
Mhm.
solid, you are more resilient physically, emotionally, and mentally. It means when you're
Mhm.
up in the middle of the night with baby, you know you're going to get through that. When you've just had the
Mhm.
work crisis, you come home and your partner's there to give you the hug. When mother-in-law shows up at your doorstep and you're a solid team on how
Mhm.
you navigate that,
Yeah.
everything else is easier when you're more secure and connected.
Thank you for saying that because I mean, I am just like flabbergasted that people brought it to Reddit, which we know is like the darkest corners of the internet, which I do have a Reddit and love reading there, but like they were talking about it because it's so real. You named what was real, that sometimes we have a terrible experience in marriage. It's just part of the
Yeah.
longevity. It's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to hit darkness, walls, shadows. But also, this particular one right here is many will have this experience with, if not a mother in law, like I said, transfer it to brother in law, father in law, sister in law. It's going to happen where somebody in your spouse's life needs this work, where you have to figure out how do we navigate it together. So I love that you're tackling this huge topic because it's something that, as you said, if we don't have this one to really navigate through, we're going to be missing a lot of resiliency. And then when the baby is up in the middle of the night, you're going to have not only a crying, dysregulated baby, but also, is my marriage okay? Is my spouse going to go to the parents and who, I wanted to ask you this anyway, so I'm rolling it in, but they think he's perfect. And so
Mm.
is now the expectation on me to be perfect so that he doesn't go to them? And I just feel like that can create such a difficult spiral. So how do you navigate that when an in-law with one of your clients says their child is perfect?
Mm. Well, even this element right here of what does that adult child bring to their family? And of course, this is different if you are experiencing domestic violence, physical abuse, that you need safe people to go and talk to get out of that relationship,
Yes.
to be safe. But in a emotionally, physically safe relationship, taking your marriage to your family is not recommended
Mhm.
because you are creating that divide. What happens in your marriage has to stay in your marriage.
Mhm.
And if you are struggling, don't wait to get help. Grab the resource, grab the book, grab the podcast episode, do the work together, grab the
Mm.
therapist, right? That's so important. And then I think there's this other element here too. So what do you do if the in-law believes that husband is perfect and can do no wrong? That is really about what are we going to let into our relationship? And it's almost like there's this element of wanting to hold a mirror up to your husband and say, well, no, look at all of these mistakes that you're making. And that's not going to work
I'm guessing
either.
that's not the right answer.
I mean, sure, it feels good in the moment. And, I always say to people, hi, I'm the blamer in my relationship. Like, I know how to like do a good protest to really get your attention.
Yeah.
But that's just part of our part of the cycle. And I think in some ways there is this growth and awakening. We cannot change what mother-in-law says, but we together as a couple have to decide how are we protecting each other? Because
Mm.
we're both human. We both make mistakes. And it's interesting when I think of that perfectionism lens,
Yeah.
and then going to you and saying, well, you're the problem. My mom even thinks you're the problem because I'm perfect. That's really covering up some deep, deep shame. That what if
Mm.
you really discovered that there's something underneath here? Or what if I actually made a mistake and you found out that I'm flawed? And
Mm.
if we could connect more on that insecurity, on those deep fears and longings and needs, that completely changes the conversation. But we have to first see that pattern of coming in and kind of like, I've got, even mom says I'm perfect, so you must be the problem. No, hang
Mm.
on. As a couple, I knew I would find my thought. I took a long road, Krista. I found
No,
my
I
thought.
love it.
I say this to couples all the time. It's not you and it's not you. Yes, we have to go inwards and do our own work, but you're here because of this dynamic. And it takes
Mm.
both of you to be in this dynamic. And so now let's take the problem and put it in front of you
Yeah.
so you two can be together on the team. But if you're going to sit here and
Mm.
say it's not me, it's all her or it's all him,
Mhm.
nothing's going to change. I cannot let you do that in this relationship.
I love that. And I really appreciated how you talk about in the book, in my quick review so far, but victim versus villain. It is
Mm.
not one is perfect, one isn't. And I think that that could be a very tempting shortcut. I was blessed to have had a mom. She's gone now, but she really held me to my ground. And it's been really powerful to talk with my husband about that over the years because I would say, my husband hurt me. And she'd go, what did you do? And she was the nicest woman. She wasn't like, you're bad, he's good. She just was curious. Like, she's like, he's a
Yeah.
great guy. Like, are you like, what happened? Like, tell me more. And it was so good for me with accountability because I wanted to be a princess and I was promised
Oh,
Cinderella, like all the other little girls. And so I was like, oh, like, well, maybe this. And it was just so grounding. She'd be like, you're
yeah.
just an amazing couple. Like, you guys will work this out. He's an amazing guy. And she knew the boundaries better than I did. And so she was able to say, like, obviously, unless there's a domestic issue violently going on, like, you're both wonderful people and you'll work it out and you'll get therapy if you need. And so my
Oh,
parents both went to therapy, modeled that for me my whole life. And so that was a really great entry I got in. And we've been able to use that and grapple with that. And that has actually helped my own marriage, where my husband is like, yeah, like, that's a beautiful thing that you also talk about in your book, which is the kind of in-laws we want to be one day. So this isn't even just about them, it's about us in the future too, right?
oh, absolutely. And can I just highlight what your mom did right there? Because I think that's so important, is
Mm.
that instead of her taking your side or his side,
Yeah.
so instead of her entering the triangle with you,
Yeah.
she said, I trust that you guys are going to get through it. She turned you back towards your husband. And
Hmm.
that is
Yes.
where I see for some, so not all again, but there are some mothers-in-law who come in and believe their son can do no wrong,
Yeah.
and they blame and they criticize their daughter-in-law instead of being able to say, hey, son, go and work this out. That's not my business. This is your marriage. Go turn towards her. And when he then goes and complains to mom, it's a healthy parent's dynamic to turn them back towards the marriage. That's what we
Mhm.
want to do. And
Yeah.
I think when we then circle back to some of those legacy patterns that keep families in those unhealthy dynamics, it's really hard to do that, that not everybody
Mm.
can do it.
Yeah, but if we have even one person to say,
Mm,
hey, this was our, maybe it wasn't either of our parents, but this godmother or this friend of ours or this TV persona,
yes.
like, let's do that. Let's be a little more like Beth and Randall from This Is Us or whatever it is. Like, and they have their hot mess issues too, but with Mandy Moore as the mom-in-law. But like,
Yes, yes, yes.
I think that that's really powerful to say if there's even one catalyst or somebody that we know, like, people are like, let's look at my mom. Like you said, she did that part of life really well, and we can all learn from that. And
Oh,
it can bless and feed into good. And I
yeah.
like how we can use little moments like that because, as we both know, we also want to raise kids. Every listener knows, and probably those grandparents listening too, like you want to empower adult children and raise your kids to one day be great spouses. So when my son says to me, hey, like I've had a lot of chores or I'm not looking forward to that, something I say to him is, yeah, I know women have a lot of hard things too. This is something you're going to need to be prepared for in your future marriage.
Hmm.
And it actually helps me to say, I know my son's strengths and I know his areas for growth so that when we're done growing him, he can present himself better
Mm,
to his future wife. Is that something you do
mm.
as well?
Oh, it's so beautiful. We had a conversation at the dinner table one day about how my parents have divided their jobs inside and outside. And so I asked the kids, I said, well, for Momo and Papa, Momo's the Finnish word
Aw.
for grandmother. And I say, who do you think has the biggest load of work? And immediately they said, Papa. He's outside, he's cutting the grass, he's cutting down trees on their property and shoveling the driveway. I'm like, mm-hmm. And then so I listed out all of the things in the home that Momo does. And then they're like, oh. And so we talked about invisible labor and visible labor and how Papa
Mhm.
does lots of things that are visible, but then Momo does all of this invisible stuff like meal planning
Yeah.
right? And it was just a good example for the kids to see. And we did that around camp registration once because my husband was doing the lunch packing, bag packing, dropping them off, picking them up while I was promoting the book or writing the book. And they had said, oh, Daddy does so much for us for camp. I'm like, yes, oh, he absolutely does. And also, who registered you for camp back in January? Oh,
Yeah.
you did, Mom? And then I listed out and who text all your parents' friends to make sure that you were with friends for those camp weeks. Oh, you did. So
Oh
it
my
is just
gosh, that's
this passing
beautiful.
along of consciousness, of awareness, of conversation and acknowledgement that everybody has their own role. And gosh,
Mm.
it is really a gift when we show up conscious with our children. And we want
Mhm.
to keep passing that along. And I do believe the next generation will be different.
I do too. I really love that you said that because we all call them the anxious generation, but there's so much good happening as everyone here is listening and doing this work with us. We're just doing it better. And we're all aware that people in the past did not have the tools we do now.
Mhm.
So we're gracious, as gracious as we can be, while also saying we're firm on the boundaries we're setting. And I love how you're doing these conversations. That's beautiful because your kids are learning to think more critically and deeper. And I know I do that when my kids overly think I'm great or my husband. And I'm like, oh, it's also my job to point out, oh, well, we had a birthday today, for example. And my daughter was like, thank you so much to her sister. And I was like, oh, and I think your dad actually got that. And he was
Oh, the
like, yeah, I
recognition.
did. And like, I think that when we do that, our spouses feel safer to support us in the world with the in-laws when they
Yes.
keep seeing us supporting them. But sometimes you
Mm.
have to make it overt. I wish you didn't. Again, you heard me say I do fairy tale thinking sometimes as an idealist, but you're reminding me and all of the listeners to use our voices. So, are there any parting words you would like to say before we tell them where they can find you and everything? Just here's one tip to remember when we're dealing with our mother-in-laws.
I'm going to focus on the couple relationship, and that is that the goal is not to get it right all the time, but instead to learn how to repair quicker and to come back to feeling close and connected. And that conflict is not a negative thing, but instead an opportunity to deepen our connection and to be closer. So if something is difficult with your mother-in-law or something does go off the rails, you trusting that you and your partner can be that solid team and repair through anything is so invaluable.
Thank you. It really is. It gives me such security just to hear you say that and to be
Mhm.
empowered that it's really scary, but it's really worth it. And then, okay, there is a like final question, part B, really quick, is when we're feeling dysregulated and we're feeling scared, Do you have any go-tos that you recommend, like a breathing pattern or a mantra that you remind people to say when they're like, oh my gosh, we're trying to do the work, but I'm really feeling my nervous system here?
That regulation is so important. That depends on whether you prefer to do it on your own or with your partner. And there are all kinds of different ways. I always say body movement is one of the best things.
Mm,
So going for a walk, there's that bilateral movement. You're
that's
getting
true.
present around you. I encourage people, don't put things in your ears.
Oh, that's a
Just be
good
present.
point.
Move your body. Maybe with your partner, you hold hands. You don't have to talk about the hard thing, but you can hold hands
Mm,
then and just
mhm.
connect on that movement. That can be a great thing for people to tap into.
Oh my goodness, you nailed it. Thank you so much. Touch, it just supersedes so much when
Mm,
it's safe touch and
yeah.
breathing even by yourself if you don't feel that courage to do that with them or if they're also dysregulated. So thank you, Dr. Tracy. Complete lifesaver before the holidays, as always and always. And tell us where you can be found on all these different spots. We're not going to follow her ashamed, guys. We are following her out loud. She has so much to offer. Do not be afraid to follow this amazing woman and book.
Oh, thank you. You can find all the details at my website, drtracyd.com. All of the book details there. It's available on all formats. And one of the best things you can do is then share this episode, have this conversation with your friends, start talking about this because it is a conversation for us to have. And of course, find me on social, say hello, let me know what stood out from today's conversation.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Krista.
Wasn't that such a powerful conversation? Dr. Tracy brings so much wisdom and practical insight to navigating in-law relationships. And guys, she is a 3. That performance was powerful. I didn't have to make one edit on that episode. It was amazing. So I was so grateful for that too. If you resonated with anything she shared today, I can't recommend her book highly enough. You, your husband, and his mother create a healthy relationship with your mother-in-law and your spouse in 5 simple steps. It's launching tomorrow. You can already start ordering it on Amazon or wherever else you get your books. And again, already a bestseller in pre-orders. This is a book you're going to be hearing about for a long time. So get it wherever books are sold. Follow her. I've got her awesome Instagram where she and her husband do beautiful reels on the show notes as well. And make sure you also take a look at that community survey so you can be part of what we show up for with you next season. Thank you for the fun tips. I already had one that made me laugh so hard. And I told my family, they said, why doesn't your family interview you sometime? And I was like, oh my gosh, I told my family and they were so excited about that idea. So we'll make sure to add that in too amidst these deep dives. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being part of it here with us. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you again for listening with us. It was so wonderful to have you. I love knowing we're doing this journey together, not perfectly, but with love, grace, and hopefully some fun too. If you loved today's episode, make sure you leave us a 5-star review at Apple Podcast or Spotify so others can find it too. Visit our show notes so you can get all the links from today's show, as well as enneagramandmarriage.com, the Instagram, the Facebook, and all over the place. Make sure you spread the word. Love living intentionally with you. Bye-bye.